Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Sense for Thoughts. I'm Mo, and today we're doing a first wear diary slightly differently. I'm not at home. I'm actually in the land of abundance, Middle East, and I was just minding my own business, and then I found out that they still have some Hermès Paddock available and in stock. And not only that, but they had a tester. As soon as I knew, I went home the next day, which was yesterday. I made sure to not spray anything on. I went there and gave it a good 6 sprays and used it as my scent of the day. And this is the morning after. It's a slightly different way of doing it, but here we are. A Hermès Paddock, you may or may not have heard about it. It was released back in 2024. It is to commemorate some kind of horse race in France that Hermès either put on or sponsor. Hermès make a lot of horse saddles and leather goods for that kind of stuff. I'm not the right person to talk about that. It's very upper class, French, bougie, not my cup of tea at all, to be honest. But anyway, so they released it in 2024 and it was only sold in a couple, I think 2 or 3 Hermès boutiques in Paris. And it was quite a limited release. They didn't have any testers out. You had to go and ask. It was meant to be as a gift for people attending this event. And then they sold it in those 3 boutiques. And then it came again, as the race came again in 2025. And this time they re-released it. It's still a limited release. It's still pretty much sold out throughout the whole of Europe and North America. But luckily, they had one here. I also inquired about it in Hermès in Japan and in a few boutiques. They have quite a few. And I was told that they didn't actually get any. So it was never stocked in Japan. But here in Doha, they had some, and they had testers out. Now, I'm pretty sure they're not meant to, or in Europe, they'd never had testers out. So I'm not sure if they're breaking the rules or they just make up their own rules here, but it's to my advantage. So I got to sample it and spray it without having to blind buy it, if you like. The idea of a horse-based perfume is not new. There's plenty out there inspired by horses. Plenty of perfumes inspired by animals. Just look at zoologists, for example. There's quite a few out there with varying degrees and desires of realism. There is ones that go more animalic and more realistic, like the one made by Papillon. Then there is ones that are more cartoonish and fairy tale. And there's some that are inspired by horse racing and not the animal itself. So I believe Habit Rouge EDT is inspired by those red racing jackets. Obviously, it's quite a big thing in France, where a lot of these houses are from. Now, disclaimer, I'm not huge into animals, let alone horses. Didn't really grow up around horses or anything like that. I think I rode a horse once when I was a child. It was a real piece of shit horse. It's probably not his fault, probably whoever was looking after it, but scared the living crap out of me. But they're a very elegant animal. I totally get it. Don't know anything about horse racing or anything like that. So this product is definitely not made for me. So that's a negative, but a positive for this review because I will not have any bias. I will treat it just as a perfume without perhaps the narrative aspect. Now, whilst horses and horse racing perfumes are not exactly brand new and a huge innovation, for a house like Hermès to make something like this, that's where it's quite different because Hermès have a very particular style, and for them to even mention the word animalic, they probably had gasps in the boardroom. Oh, how dare you? So that's where it's exciting and where they're breaking the mold of their brand and the kind of products that they release. Now, let's talk quickly about the presentation and the experience. Hermès have a private line called Hermessence, and they retail for about 260 to 280 British pounds, probably similar in other currencies depending on where you live. They don't really hit discounters. They very rarely hit discounters. So a lot of the time, similar to LV, you have to shell out the full price. They are more expensive than LV for 100ml. That's one thing to note. I think Hermès and LV are direct competition in everything they do. So I'm definitely sure they compare their perfumes to one another as well. They come in this orange unlabeled box, and it doesn't say the perfume name on it whatsoever. You open it and you have this nice bag with like 2 drawstrings, and it has a piece of paper on there with the information about the perfume, like storage is flammable, etc., the ingredients, etc. But otherwise, all their boxes and all their packaging comes the same. I quite like it. The orange box is iconic, it's made of good quality, and this is a nice little bag rather than putting it in plastic. Now, this is not actually Paddock. I do have a Paddock, and I did buy a Paddock, and it's right here in this Hermès bag. But this is actually not for me, this is for a friend of a friend, and I'm taking it back to the UK for them because they really want it. To me, I didn't buy it. I was heavily considering it, but I'll mention that at the end of the video. This is another Hermès, the only Hermès that I have. It was actually gifted to me, but the presentation is pretty much the same. This is a Goribin. The bottle is very high quality glass. It's got a nice silhouette. It comes with this leather on the cap. It's a metal cap with a lot of leather around it, and it has stitching, and the color of the cap usually corresponds to the color of the perfume, and it has the name on there. So Paddock pretty much had the exact same bottle. It just had a beige colored leather, and obviously it said Paddock on it. The Paddock presentation is different because it has a sticker with the horse on it rather than these are painted on names. It's the only one that does it. And the sticker on the reverse, it says the name of the race in 2025. On the back, in Chanel Les Exclusives, where it says Eau de Parfum or Eau de Toilette in the back. That's the only difference. With regards to the atomizer, it's very good. I'll give this one spray here. It's a very good atomizer, exactly what you expect from a high quality brand at this price point. So that covers the presentation. Now, this is not really a full review because I've only smelled Paddock twice and only wore it. I've worn it on skin twice, but only wore it as my scent of the day for a whole day and really focused on it once, which was yesterday. It's more of a first wear diary, so I'm putting it in the first wear diary playlist. So what does Paddock smell like? There's not a lot of information about Paddock online, and to be honest with you, half of the comments on Fragrantica, I just read them yesterday for the first time, and I had to stop because most of it is people complaining or commentating on something that they haven't even smelled, saying, oh, it's exclusive, you can't get it, this is crap, etc., etc. So there's really not a lot of info out there. I only went into it because I just was shocked that it was available. And was like, wow, there's even a test, let me test it out. What does Paddock smell like? When you read about Paddock or when you think about it, it smells like horses or a stable. You probably think of something furry and animalic and dirty. Okay, but Paddock is not that whatsoever. Paddock is more of a fairy tale interpretation, romanticization of a horse paddock before the race, where maybe the horses are getting their final meal of hay and the leather goods are coming on and everyone's in a jolly mood and ready to go racing. As soon as I smell Paddock, as soon as you spray it on, you get an immediate bit of sweet hay. Immediately, when I think of hay, I think of Serge Lutens Chergy. Now, Serge Lutens Chergy has a fair bit of hay in there, but it's not as sweet as Paddock, and it's more alcoholic. Paddock is more fermented, and it brings out more of the sweet components of the hay, rather than the boozy components of the hay. There is a slight animalic hint in the back where it smells a bit pissy and a bit fermented, but it doesn't smell unpleasant at all. Remember, this is Hermès after all. They can only push the boat so far when it comes to animalics. This is not an animalic leather fragrance or a stinky oud fragrance or anything like that. It starts off with this really caramelly, ambery, sweet, slightly spicy, but the spice is very faint. It's more like a cinnamon spice, and it smells incredibly sweet. If I was to tell you what Paddock smells like, it's quite simple. It comes across as very simple, but if you know anything about perfumery, if you've been in this hobby for a while, you know that for something to smell simple and cohesive, that's actually super impressive. It's very difficult to have something that smells so simple. And it actually takes a lot of work to make something smell that good and that simple. There is this hay. It's not green at all, and it's sweet, caramelly and ambery with a slight cinnamony touch. There's something nutty about it. There is this drink in the Middle East and in Asia where you get milk, you warm it up, you add in some chopped roasted almonds, and you add in some honey or sugar, and that is the closest thing that I could compare it to. It has that creaminess, it has a nuttiness, and it has a sweetness to it. It's not fully fermented like Chergy is more on the fermented dark side. It's more like the hay has just started to ferment a little bit and some of those natural sugars have started to come out. Or it's like you take a big pile of hay and you cook it. There is this Central Asian dessert slash Persian dessert, I guess, called samanak. It's like some kind of tradition that they have around their new year or spring comes, where they cook this grass kind of thing for hours until it turns into this brown syrupy goo. And I've had the pleasure, maybe displeasure because I don't really enjoy it, of trying that. And it's very similar to Paddock, where it's like it's cooked out, the hay, or in this instance, in the dessert instance, this grass, and it's brought out all of its natural sweetness. It's been reducing and reducing, and it gives off that vibe. The dessert thing is a lot more intense than Paddock, and a lot more sticky and date-like, but Paddock has a lot of sweetness for me, but it's not syrupy, it's more dry and powdery. That's where I would differentiate the two. They both have a grassy sweetness, but the desserty thing that I'm describing, which you guys probably think, what the hell are you talking about, is quite syrupy and gooey in texture. Paddock is very dry and very nutty and very powdery. People say that it's an oriental leather perfume, okay? I get it. There is a bit of a leathery undertone, similar to, I guess you could compare it to Habit Rouge, if you really want Habit Rouge EDT being slightly leathery. When I think of leathers, I think of like dark black, brown leathers, really rugged and animalic, maybe a bit saffrony, maybe a bit medicinal, a bit animalic. This, if it was a leather, it would be a very fine French polished yellow, light brown leather. Perhaps one you'd put on a horse. I totally get it. It's impressive for Hermès to be going for something so narrative and so evocative, when usually they go for something that is more about just making a good perfume that smells very wearable. They've gone out of the box. They've made something for this event, and it is very evocative, and it does take you to a horse's stable, but it's a very romantic take on it. It's like a painting by a French artist using very fine strokes of their paintbrush, and it's very detailed, but it feels very cohesive. When others try and do these kind of evocative things, sometimes it comes off as a bit cartoonish, like when Nichonnet do it, where it's like almost like Tom and Jerry take on something, like an animated take. But this one is like a very fine French painting. The good thing about it, because it's a Hermès, it's incredibly wearable, very easy to wear. I would not signature scent this. It's quite strong. It's quite sweet and ambery. The carrot seeds are quite prominent in this, and I think it gives it a lot of sweetness and vegetalness and greenness. And it does remind me of Zoologist Rabbit from that perspective. Zoologist Rabbit really goes for the full gourmand thing, as Zoologist Rabbit is more oatmeal in texture, stickiness, whilst this is quite dry and nutty. So I would say that's the difference. But actually Zoologist Rabbit would be another option, but it's nowhere near as elegant. It just has a similar vibe, I would say. It's actually a very strong performer for the first few hours. I did 5 sprays, I believe. So I did 3 on my neck, 1, 2, and 3. I did 1 on my shirt. It's still there now, the next morning. And I did 1 on my wrist for sniffing, and it was projecting quite well, actually, at least 1.5 meters, I would say, for the first few hours, which was quite impressive. Also, when it comes to performance, it was projecting for the first 4 hours. Then for the following 2 hours, you'd get whiffs of it. Then at the 6-hour mark, it became a skin scent. And by the morning, it was gone off my skin before showering, that is. I would say it's average performance, but it's good for Hermès, if you like. One of the biggest critiques of this line is poor performance and the performance to price ratio. And I can confirm with my Agar Eben, which I will review later on the channel, the performance absolutely sucks, but the scent is amazing. It's one of those similar to the LV ones, except these are much more mature and then really not for the younger crowd. The performance actually is very average, as described. It's 6 hours with only 4 of them being really good projection. But it's impressive and above average for this line. So I have to give them that. It is still tempting to buy. When people think of Hermès, there's 2 main problems that they kind of have. One is performance and one is the price point. And I think they're interlinked, because when you spend a certain amount of money, you expect a certain level of performance as a bare minimum. But to be honest with you, at 6 hours, they were really good 6 hours. Like, it really did. You just caught whiffs of it, and it was really wonderful. It had a great scent bubble. I can't really complain about the performance of Paddock for me. It's on the lower end of acceptable, but it's above average for Hermès. So now for my recommendation. Would I buy Paddock? Would I recommend Paddock? Why didn't I buy Paddock? The reason I didn't buy Paddock is simple. It's because of the price. It works out at about $285, and to me, I can't see myself wearing it a lot. Usually, a lot of the Hermès, I would say, they're not worth it because of the performance and the performance to price ratio. For Paddock, the performance actually exceeded my expectations, which were quite low to begin with. I would say with Paddock, it is worth it. I'm not into horses, okay? I'm not into horse racing. I don't have much experience with the animals. If I was, I would absolutely buy this, no doubt about it. It's very elegant. It's a great fairy tale kind of painting take on horse racing, and it is truly a beautiful scent. To me, it's it's quite unique. It's got that hay, sweet ambery caramel touches with some nutty dryness and a bit of leatheriness in the base, but very faint, with a slight hint of pissy animalic. So that is definitely unique, and I have nothing like it in my collection. But to me, it would be restricted to every now and then wintertime wear when you're in the mood for it. And at that price point, I just simply can't justify that purchase. Would I recommend it to you? At retail price, I would not pay whatever is being charged on eBay because of the exclusivity. At retail price, I think for the right person that is really into horse racing or horses in general, and they connect with the narrative of this perfume, I think it's great. I think it's very well executed. I think it's very high quality. I think the performance is not bad. I think the presentation is amazing. So I would recommend it for that person. But for a person like me, it didn't quite make sense. Now, I do want to touch upon exclusivity and these kind of limited releases and FOMO marketing, because it drives me absolutely insane and I really despise it. Now, it's a no-brainer for anyone with any experience in anything. Exclusivity increases desirability. We want the things that we can't have. The more rare they are, the more valuable they seem to our monkey brain, if you like. That goes for everything outside of perfume. You want that rare shoe, that Jordan that no one else has or can get. You want that rare watch, or you want to get the reservation at this fancy restaurant that is difficult to eat in, etc. The whole thing is very ridiculous and very silly. But anyway, when it comes to perfumes, when it comes to Paddock, I understand that they didn't really mean it from a marketing perspective, because they clearly made this due to the horse race and they wanted to do it as a gift to commemorate the time, and they had a few extra. They probably thought, let's sell it in our Paris boutique, job done. And then they released it this year because they realized, oh, hold on, people want to try this in more boutiques but still limited. So this is not necessarily about Paddock itself. It's about the idea of FOMO and exclusivity, kind of marketing in general in perfumes. I absolutely hate it because it promotes two things. One is blind buying. I believe this doesn't have a tester. I just got lucky. I think these guys might have been breaking the rules and just decided, we'll just do a tester anyway, just to sell these bottles here in the Middle East. But I'm pretty sure in Europe they did not have testers. With other exclusive releases, you can't sample them. For example, Shadid by Andy Tower that he just released 200 bottles of. There's no opportunity to sample a test. You're going to have to commit. Les Indémodables, Vanille Havane, the Cour de Oud, you could not sample that tester. You have to just commit and pay a lot of money for it. And to me, it's off-putting because it promotes blind buying. It promotes reselling for extremely high prices and price gouging online. So I really despise it. Sometimes it's understandable if you're making something artisanal and you only bought a certain amount of ingredients and you can't source them anymore to release something limited in quantity. For example, with Andy Tower, when he released Nexon, it was due to the amount of ingredients at the right quality that he could order, and that was all he could order and all he could get. So he made those kind of number of bottles. Same with Vanille Havane, the Oud one, they only had a certain amount of Oud and they couldn't source any more. So I understand that. But with certain brands that are clearly doing it just for exclusivity's sake, I think it's a cheap way to try and get attention and get some kind of push sales, I guess. So I'm totally against it. It's really off-putting. If I had bought Paddock and I hadn't tested it or sampled it, I probably would have been really disappointed, actually, because I might have thought, oh, it's going to be animalic and barnyardy and stinky, when actually it's really beautiful. But because I sampled it and actually wore it for a full day, I feel like I can make an informed decision. And that's what it should be about, respecting the customers, aka ourselves, and giving them the opportunity to make informed decisions. That's what I prefer. I wouldn't rush out to buy Paddock because I believe they'll probably re-release it in 2026 again and have even more quantities. So you will get the opportunity to get your nose on it. Have you tried Paddock? Do you own it? Have you tried it? Have you smelt it? Have you read about it? What do you think? Put it down in the comments below, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.